7 live stream, but this is going to be a little bit different because we are going to react to these FA Cup results because this is now determined who is going to be blanking in game week 29. It's going to be a nice quick live stream because I think we need to discuss what you need to do with your teams, the exact teams that are going to be blanking in game week 29, and a few injury updates because if those that don't know, Solanke missed the FA Cup game. There's a chance that he might have a knee injury, and also one of the most bought players going into game week 26, He-Chan, went off with a hamstring injury, so we do need to cover that one off as well. Also, what a free hit in game week 29 is going to look like, as well as whether we should activate our wildcard going into game week 27. So please do, if you haven't already, fire off any questions in the comment section and I will be sure to answer them throughout this stream. It's going to be probably about half an hour or so nice, compact. But as always, please do let me know if you are tuning into this live stream. It'd be great to see some new faces in the chat. Nikhil saying, I've got a team full of double Arsenal, Gusto. Who should I transfer? I'll cover that one in a minute, my friend. So what I first want to do is go through these FA Cup results just to give us a little bit of an idea on exactly what we are dealing with right now. So let's get straight into that. So what were the results? This is the big thing first and foremost. What were the FA Cup results? Well, hopefully you can see that on your screens here. Liverpool ended up beating Southampton 3-0. You probably know this already. Wolves winning 1-0. Man United winning 1-0. And Chelsea, thankfully, I am a Chelsea fan, winning 3-2 against Wolves. Last night was Newcastle winning on penalties and Man City beating Luton 6-2. So big results, but no real upsets. No real upsets that are going to cause any sort of problems in our team. So we need to get to the real deal here. What are we looking at going into game week 29? Well, these are the official fixtures for game week 29, confirmed. Haven't been updated on the official FPL app or on a lot of other places, but thankfully FPL.team have us covered. This is what the fixtures are for game week 29. Make sure you screenshot them, whatever you need to do. We have Burnley at home against Brentford. We knew that was going to be confirmed going into the FA Cup games. Luton versus Nottingham Forest is the only one that we didn't know going into tonight, which is now being confirmed. Man United beating Nottingham Forest means that this game is going ahead, which is great news for those that maybe already have double Luton in their teams. But of course, those that maybe had a Man United player in their sides, not looking as good going into this week. Fulham at home against Spurs, again, both teams we knew were going to play in this week. They are confirmed. And West Ham at home against Aston Villa. Again, the reason why a lot of us were buying Aston Villa previous to this week was because we knew they had a guaranteed fixture in game week 29. So, to be honest with you, I was hoping for a bit of carnage and we didn't get any of it. And really, it is looking like quite a poor blank game week. So please do let me know in the chat, what is your current transfer strategy? I'm going to quickly put up a bit of a poll in here just to get an idea, and then I'm going to go through exactly what I plan on doing with my transfers and my chips coming up. So what is your current chip? We'll put chip strategy, and if you could let me know in the chat as well, guys, what is your current chip strategy? It'd be awesome to know because I feel like those results aren't really as much chaos as what we wanted beforehand. For me, I wanted Man United to lose that game. I wanted Chelsea, well, I didn't want Chelsea to lose the game because I'm a Chelsea fan, but it would have helped for the free hit situation. So what's your current chip strategy? Are you free hitting in 27? Are you free hitting in 29? Are you wildcarding in game week 27? There's so much carnage going on, guys. I really want to know what your plan is. Let me just drop those two for now. Just going to put those two in for now. I'll kind of amend it in a minute to make sure it's a little bit interesting. But right now, I think a common strategy is going to be what we do is either use our free transfers, pile into teams that we know are going to be having good fixtures either side of game week 29, and then we free hit in 29, meaning you can bring in those players and you don't have to worry about the blank game week. So, for example, even though Liverpool, for example, don't play in game week 29, if you plan on free hitting, it's not a problem at all. You just bring in those players and free hit in that game week. Outside of that, what you could do is if your team's looking terrible, just wildcard now and then either have a team set for game week 29 where you can run through it, or play your free hit in game week 29 as well and really double down on the situation. I'm going to show you my team just to give a little bit of reference, because I think my team is quite template, and I think a lot of you might be able to resonate with my team. So this is how my team is looking right now going into game week. Let's get game week 27. So we need to cover off a few situations right now. First and foremost, a certain He Chan ended up bringing him in last game week, and it looks like he is a potential injury doubt going into the weekend. So if we come into the Wolves timeline here, it really hurts me to look at this. You can see here in the 56th minute, after a lengthy delay, Hwang is substituted due to injury, with Portuguese forward Neto replacing him. A lot of the reports say that he was holding his hamstring. Now, with the game being this weekend, that does not look good news for those that may be invested in somebody like He Chan. And with us having priority on our free transfers right now, and Spurs sat there with amazing fixtures and also playing in game week 29, I feel like a lot of the community this game week are going to be looking to sell He Chan for a certain Son, Richarlison or Maddison. And we are going to come on to that in a minute on maybe whether Son is the best Spurs asset. But for me, the advice is this: if you own He Chan, hold your horses right now. Don't be selling him tonight. I don't think there's any chance of him falling in price, for example. But we are going to get a Friday press conference from Gary O'Neill, and that will tell us the extent of the injury. So for me, being a He Chan owner, I'm going to wait, be patient, wait for some more information. And if he's ruled out, because he is blanking in game week 29, I think I will sell him for either a Spurs asset like a Richarlison or a Son, or I'll look for an Aston Villa midfielder. But it feels like Spurs are the ones that have the real upside in FPL right now, to be honest with you. So Hwang doesn't look good. In terms of a certain Dominic Solanke, we know that he missed the Bournemouth game due to a supposed knee injury. Now, again, we don't know the extent of that right now. What I think is this: we wait until the Friday press conferences, because even if Dominic Solanke is ruled out for game week 27, they double in game week 28. And if they do come out and say that it's a small injury, he's a doubt for the weekend, but he'll be back for game week 28, I think you just bench him this week or start him and hope that he does get some minutes. The fixtures are too good. Now, yes, he does blank in game week 29, but you're gonna want him for this double game week in 28 at home against Sheffield United and Luton. So unless he's ruled out for up to a month, I think we hold Dominic Solanke and we keep him for at least double game week 28. And then, depending on your chip strategy, you can either do one or two things: free hit in game week 29 and keep Dominic Solanke in your teams, or another option that you could do is maybe sell him for somebody like an Ivan Toney that plays in game week 29 if you are not free hitting. The only issue with selling Dominic Solanke is the fixtures are so good. After the blank, they have Everton at home, Palace at home and Luton away. So I think you're going to want to go back to Dominic Solanke at some point. So do be cautious of that. If you are selling him, you might want him straight back in your FPL teams. So that's kind of the cover off on Hwang and Solanke right now. My advice, wait until the press conferences, but He Chan doesn't look too good right now. Nico, hope you're doing well, my friend. People saying about Hwang, yes, it does sound like Hwang is a bit of a risk. And a few people saying Hwang to Son or Wildcard. If you can do it for a free transfer, I do think Hwang to Son does make a lot of sense for our teams. The reason why I do like Son as the number one Spurs asset is because if you're investing in a premium midfielder, it means that if he doesn't hit the ground running, you can downgrade to a Richarlison or Maddison. If you end up investing in Richarlison or Maddison and Son is the one that you should have gone for, you then really do need the funds in the bank to then invest into that premium asset. And for that reason, I think you just go all in on the most expensive midfielder and then downgrade if appropriate. Now, taking a look at Liverpool, because I do think a lot of people are maybe thinking to themselves, maybe I invest in somebody like a Mo Salah. Once again, we don't know the extent right now of Mo Salah's injury, but the problem with Mo Salah is that, of course, Liverpool play today 1-3-0 against Southampton. But looking at the squad, Mo Salah wasn't included. Luis Diaz was an unused sub. Also, McAllister and Kanate came on, but a lot of the big guns were still missing. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Salah, Szoboszlai, Darwin Núñez, none of these were in the squad for Liverpool. And in preparation for the weekend, I think that's actually more of a negative than a positive. I'm not expecting Mo Salah to get rushed into this Liverpool team with, of course, the huge match against Man City in game week 28. So I think Mo Salah is in a void right now going into the weekend unless Klopp comes out and says Mo Salah is raring to go and he is available. I would need to see some serious information from Klopp to even consider investing in Mo Salah. And of course, with the confirmation of Liverpool blanking, as you can see, in game week 29, if you invest in somebody like Mo Salah, I think you are tying yourself down to a free hit in game week 29. So I don't think Mo Salah is an investment. I think Son is the premium option that we go for just because of the fixtures being so damn good. If you check them out on your screens here, and hopefully you can see them, they have Crystal Palace at home this week, Villa away in game week 28. Not amazing, but not terrible either. I think they can hurt Aston Villa, especially with the injuries that they do currently have. And then, of course, Fulham in game week 29. So some decent fixtures for Son, and I do expect him to be the most bought player going into this weekend, especially off the back of that He-Chan injury. So that's a little bit of a cover off on exactly what is going on right now. I would be really interested to know what questions you guys have in terms of the teams. Now, of course, game week 29 is going to be a free hit for a lot of managers out there. If you take a look at my team and as an example, game week 29 looks quite woeful. So what we're going to do, we're going to take it all the way back to game week 27. Let's have the assumption that I am going to be selling He-Chan for Son because of a hamstring injury to He-Chan. And my team is likely going to look something like this with the assumption that Pedro Porro is available. And if Solanke is ruled out, then naturally I think Ake will come into the team as a replacement, and I will just bank on a Man City domination of Man United. So that is likely how the team would look going into game week 27 with the transfer of He-Chan to Son. Now, going into game week 28, of course, the double game week for Bournemouth is really interesting because, of course, they blank in game week 29. So it's very difficult to invest in Bournemouth in 28 unless you are free hitting in game week 29. So what I want to do right now, with the assumption that maybe Solanke is available, I think the team looks absolutely fine for game week 28. Yes, it would be ideal for me to invest in a Bournemouth defender, but if we are going to play the field here and say that I'm not going to free hit in game week 29, I'm not going to try and run my team through, realistically, we need to look at the teams that are playing in game week 29. And from an attacking perspective, I think the only real ones that we want to invest in is going to be a second Spurs midfielder. We're going to be wanting to invest in an Aston Villa midfielder and maybe potentially a West Ham alongside Ivan Toney. But Solanke to Ivan Toney does make a lot of sense in game week 29. So if we were to roll my transfer in game week 28 and get ourselves into game week 29, it's looking terrible. It is not looking good at all. Charlie Taylor comes in. Now, of course, I, for one, was hoping for Arsenal to play Chelsea in this week because I would have been able to field a really strong team. But looking at this squad right now, it requires quite a few transfers in order to get myself to a team that I would feel quite comfortable playing. So let's run the scenario. Let's say I sell Erling Haaland, for example, to a Ivan Toney. One free transfer done. Then we're looking at the fixtures and saying, who are the players that I really want to own in game week 29 with the assumption that I might wildcard in game week 30 or 31 to get out of the mess that I'm creating. So I think Richarlison would be a really good investment in the midfield. So let's say we get rid of somebody like a Phil Foden for Mr. Richarlison. That's then my two free transfers done. And I look at my team and think, well, I have the big boys. I've got Watkins, I've got Toney, I've got double Spurs midfield, and I've got somebody like a Pedro Porro and a defender. But of course, I'm not fielding 11, and there are going to be a lot of managers out there activating their free hit. So straight away, my team is in a poor position. I need to ask myself, is holding the free hit for later on in the season going to be more beneficial than fielding this team? A hit is going to be needed. So then, looking at game week 29, which players offer me the upside to invest in a -4? Well, with no investment in Aston Villa defenders, I think it makes sense to maybe double down on the West Ham attack and hope that is going to be an open game. So, for example, a sale of Cole Palmer to a Jared Bowen could be a good investment for my team. and it gets myself the coverage of West Ham. And then I start to look at it and think outside of it, are Luton worth an investment right now? Maybe somebody like a Dominic Solanke to an Adebayo could be a wise move. And with a -8, my team does start to look like this. And I start to say to myself, is this really a team that I want to be fielding in game week 29? Because it looks pretty awful, if you ask me, for a -8. It's no better than the free hit. Yes, I am covering off all of the teams available right now that most of the free hitters are going to have. But then when we come into game week 30, I've sold a lot of really nice assets to just own some garbage players, really. So on the face of it right now, I think the free hit in game week 29 does make a lot of sense. I was hoping for a few upsets to maybe change the direction that the team was going to go in. But based on the way that the team really does need to get ripped up in order to build a team, I think maybe just free hitting in game week 29, allowing myself to hold the players that I truly want to own long term, like a Dominic Solanke, like an Erling Haaland, even a Cole Palmer, for example. I want that player beyond game week 29. And for me, having to sell him makes no sense. So a free hit in game week 29 right now does feel likely. So what would that team look like? That's the big question right now, because I think the big problem is there a situation where the free hit in game week 29 is going to be pretty rubbish? Well, we need to get the essentials in the team right now. So Ivan Toney would come straight into the side. Of course, we would have Ollie Watkins in there. And realistically, looking at the other forwards available in this game week, I think it probably would be Adebayo at Luton as the other forward if we were going for a front three. So Adebayo coming in for a certain Dominic Solanke. Now, outside of this, as I mentioned, Richarlison would come in as a midfielder. And in terms of the rest of the team, it's not looking great. It's not looking great. I want an Aston Villa midfielder, and that would be in the shape of a certain Bailey, potentially. So we got our Aston Villa coverage. Would I want to go defensive? Absolutely not right now, to be honest with you. So I think defensively, I wouldn't be looking to invest in Aston Villa unless we saw a real upturn in their players. Maybe an Alex Moreno if I wanted to go there. Brentford, outside of Ivan Toney, I don't really feel any confidence in investing in any of their players. So Luton is the real route to go for. I think a Doughty, is that how you pronounce it? Doughty? I can never get it. I always say the American band Daughtry. So Doughty's in the team. I'm really starting to scratch the bottom of the barrel here for players. Let me know in the comment section, who are your free hit essentials? I'll be really interested to know. Going to give you 30 seconds to fire off some essential players that you think should be in this free hit team. For me, free hit 29 does make a lot of sense. So I'm just reading some of the questions. So game week 29 makes a lot of sense for teams. The problem with it is the team looks so bad. So bad. This is where we're currently at right now. I wouldn't want Areola in goal against Aston Villa attack. So I think naturally we'd be leaning towards Kaminsky in goal. Chat, let me know in the comments right now who should be in this team. I agree. Jarrod Bowen should be absolutely in there. Can we get any better than this, guys? I need one defender. One defender, please, as a recommendation. I've seen a lot of Reguilon love. Reguilon's in. Okay. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds just to let me know in the chat. Is there any other essentials missing in this team? Josh is recommending Awoni. I don't mind that at all. Flecken in goal. Yep, don't mind Flecken. Gibbs White. Alanga. Langa's not a bad shout at all. Lalex is saying Watkins, Bailey, Toney, Son, Richarlison, Moreno. But I do like the idea of Moreno maybe going for the investment in triple Aston Villa. My only concern is that Digne may get a potential game. Douglas Luiz could easily replace Bailey as well. I do agree on that one. Okay, so I think roughly there's a few things here. I think the basis of the team is correct. I think Bailey could be substituted for Douglas Luiz as an example. I think somebody like a Richarlison could be a James Maddison, but I think the essentials are kind of covered off. I think Doughty, Son, Tony, Watkins, Adebayo probably makes sense in the team. Now we have to look at this and say to ourselves, is this worth a free hit? Well, looking at my team, it is worth a free hit because I can only field 6 players without hits, 8 with hits. And then I'm selling a lot of good assets that I want long term for my team. So this is where we're falling. And I really don't like it. I really do not like this. I'm going to fire off a poll right now. And I literally just want you to let me know. Would you free hit with this team? Because it is just uninspiring. Sometimes when you play your free hit, yes, it is a great opportunity to use your free hit in blank game weeks because not many people are going to have the ownership of all of these players. But also you want to have the excitement in the game sometimes. And when I look at the potential fixtures coming up for the season, and again, massive shout out to Planet FPL and FPL.team for their collaboration in this section. They've done awesome work and the predictions hopefully will come true. But of course, they are only projections. When we take a look at them here, and hopefully you can see that clearly, what I'm going to do is just zoom in a little bit for you, just so you can see it a little bit better. Hopefully that's a bit more clearer for everybody. Okay, so looking at the predictions coming up for the future game weeks, game week 34 and 37 are the ones where free hitting makes a lot of sense if you're not going to do it in game week 29. And I think that's the big thing right now is if you're not going to do it in 29, when else are you going to do it? And game week 34 or 37 makes sense. So first up, game week 37, we should have potentially a double for Bournemouth. We should have a double for Brighton, a double for Chelsea, a double for Fulham, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, Newcastle, Spurs, Wolves. Straight away, that feels a very, very exciting time to either use your bench boost or your free hit. On the other hand, if we look at game week 34, a potential double includes Arsenal with Wolves and Chelsea. That looks like a great opportunity to maybe have Arsenal defender, Saka, and maybe a differential. Crystal Palace under a new ownership, 2 games at home. That could be a great time to maybe have an Elise in your team. Then we have Everton, pretty rubbish, don't want to touch those. Sheffield United looks pretty terrible as well. But in terms of single game weeks, Man United will have their fixture at Sheffield United. That could be a great opportunity to pile in on Rashford and Bruno Fernandes if you wanted to. Maybe that sounds better than what it actually is. Of course, Spurs blank in that game week, so it's a great way of navigating that game week with your free hit if you are heavily invested in those Spurs players. And also taking a look at the other games, Chelsea versus Arsenal, not ideal at all. So it means that you could move away from Chelsea assets if you're heavily invested. So the big thing is this, game week 29, and let me just come out of the Zoom a minute, is pretty rubbish for a free hit. But if your team's in a situation where you're having to take -8, -12s to get close to 8 or 9 players, even though the free hit looks terrible, I think using it in game week 29 does make sense just to enable yourself to get through the game week. It means that you don't have to sell off some premium assets that look really good long term. So what I want to bring up right now is the fixture planner. When we discount game week 29, so this is over on Fantasy Football Fix. If I was to exclude game week 29, this gives us a bit of an idea on which teams long term have really good fixtures. And also, I haven't said this yet, if you are enjoying the stream, please do drop a like. And of course, if you're not subscribed already, please do consider hitting that subscribe button, doing plenty of content. I'm doing 2 videos tomorrow, transfer plans and wildcard draft. And then Friday, I am doing team selection and chip strategy. So if you want to stick around for that, please do consider being a subscriber. It'd be awesome to have you around. And of course, if you can drop a like, that'll be absolutely sick. So the big issue with game week 29 the big issue with not free hitting in game week 29 is that you might start to sell off a lot of good players. So take Bournemouth, for example. When we discount 29, they are still the best team to invest in. And I think there could be a situation where maybe some people look to sell Dominic Solanke for an Ivan Toney in game week 29 to field a team. But beyond game week 30, Bournemouth are still one of the best teams to have coverage. They have Everton at home, Crystal Palace at home, and Luton away. Now, one argument is that you could just wildcard in game week 30 and bring all of those players back into your team. But of course, then you are really tying yourself down to that certain strategy, and ownership and value that you've tied up in that player is going to be completely lost. Chelsea are another one. Cole Palmer will become a very, very quick replacement for a lot of managers. I can see it already. Cole Palmer out to an Aston Villa midfielder, or maybe someone like a Son. But when we look at the fixtures outside of game week 29, they're really good. Game week 30, come back to Burnley at home, Man United, and then Sheffield United. Again, you can wildcard in game week 30 and bring all of these players back in, but you are selling a player that you probably have built up a lot of value in. So you do need to consider that if you are doing it with the players. Spurs are the only team right now that I can sit here and say investing in them makes a lot of sense, regardless of what you're doing with your free hit. I think Son ticks a lot of boxes. They've got great fixtures. They play in game week 29, and they look great before game week 29 and directly after game week 29. And as we discussed, if you're new on the stream, Hee-Chan does look like he could be ruled out for the weekend with a hamstring injury. So with that news, realistically, I think Hee-Chan to Son is just going to pick up a load of momentum right now. And if we take a look at the price changes going into tonight, just to give you a bit of an update on what they're looking like, Son looks like he could rise in price already. So do be cautious of that. And when we do take a look at Hee-Chan, he will not change in price tonight, which is okay. However, I'm expecting that to fly through the roof over the next 24 hours with the news that he could be out with a hamstring injury. So one of the big questions is, do we invest in somebody like Son? Well, the only issue I have with Son is, how does all of the players playing with one another impact him as an asset? So what I've got here is a heat map taken from Fantasy Football Fix. And this basically looks at, first graphic here, Son on the field with Maddison, Kulusevski and Richarlison, because right now the expectation is that we're going to see Son play off the left, Richarlison down the middle, Kulusevski off the right, and Maddison in a number 10, number 8, however you want to call it. So this is the touch heat map for him when they're on the field. The far touch heat map is Son without Richarlison. So when Richarlison is not on the field and Son is played as a number 9, you can see his touches are so much better. Plenty of touches in and around the 18-yard box, rather on this one being on the left wing predominantly. And when we look at the underlying numbers, I will get them up in a second, you will see a massive contrast. When he is playing without Richarlison, he is the number 9, he is the one finishing the chances. When he plays on the left with the other 3 big boys, he is pushed really far out to the left as a bit more of a chance creator, and his shot volume drops dramatically. So that's the big problem right now with Son. We're going to get no information between now and game week 27 on how they're going to field the team. If we rock up in game week 27 as Son is playing as the number 9, happy days. That is the player that you want to have long term. And I think because of that potential, investing in Son does make a lot of sense, knowing that you can downgrade to Richarlison or Maddison really easily if Son isn't the pick. So I think you just kind of accept it, go with the flow with Son, knowing that you can downgrade really, really easily. But I thought it'd be quite interesting for you guys just to see the touch heat map here and how it dramatically changes with certain players on the field. I think it is quite a beneficial graphic to see. I want to dip into some of the questions in a minute because I'm conscious I've been rambling for a while, and it is a Q&A, so I want to make sure I'm not missing out on too much. So TSH is saying, I have 7 of those 11 without hits, don't have a wildcard, so need to save my free hit. Yeah, so if you can put yourself in a position where your team is anywhere near this free hit team that I've built, even if you have 8 or 9 players, and maybe just holding your free hit for that game week is the right play. For me, if you can get to this team, the ones that I think are absolutely essential are going to include the following: Son, Watkins, Toney, Bowen, I think an Aston Villa midfielder and maybe a Spurs defender. But with the way they're defending right now, I don't really think they're essential. So if you can own those attackers, and I really think you need to put your emphasis on the midfielders and the forwards, that is the direction to go in. And maybe if you get yourself in a situation where you have 7 or 8 players, but those 7 and 8 are Tony, Watkins, 2 Spurs, a West Ham midfielder and an Aston Villa midfielder, then maybe just holding your free hit for that game week is the way to go. And then use it later on in the season. And that is maybe the route that we do need to go to. If I look at my team once again and I reset the whole thing, if we just run through this play one more time, because I do think it is beneficial for those that have a very similar team to myself, to see how the team could look. If we were to play the team, it would look like this, and I would sell Hee-Chan because of the hamstring injury news for Son. My team would look like this for game week 27, which I'm more than happy with. If Solanke's out, then I would have Ake come in as first sub. Going into game week 28, of course, a double game week for Bournemouth and for Luton. So maybe investing in a Luton player makes a lot of sense. So when we take a look at it right now, I've got Dominic Solanke. Let's make the assumption that he is available. The fixtures in game week 28 that we should target. Villa at home against Spurs doesn't feel like the best investment for our teams, so I probably would avoid going there. Luton, on the other hand, away against Crystal Palace also doesn't feel like a fantastic game, but it is a double game week for them. So maybe making the move for Doughty could be wise. For example, selling Ake for Doughty and having him play instead of a Pedro Porro. And all of a sudden, the team for game week 28 looks strong regardless. We've got our investment in the big players. We've got 2 doublers, not too heavily invested. And of course, with this strategy of not free hitting in game week 29, I think it's very difficult to add any more Bournemouth players to your team. So with this strategy of a no free hit 29, that is probably the direction that we would go in. And I could even bring in somebody like a Garnacho if I think that's a beneficial fixture in game week 28. Just to remind ourselves, the fixtures that we should target, which I don't have too much investment in. Chelsea at home against Newcastle, I've got the best asset in Cole Palmer. I don't need another one. West Ham, Bowen could be a fantastic investment. Maybe that is worth a hit that week at home against Burnley. So for example, if I really wanted to, I could look to sell maybe Garnacho and upgrade him to Bowen. Or I could get rid of a Phil Foden. Feels a little bit risky, but it is against Liverpool, which isn't a fantastic game. We could take a -4 this week. Look to bring in Jarrod Bowen for that fantastic home game against Burnley. And all of a sudden, the team looks strong. Going into game week 29, the team looks better. Not amazing. But I do have coverage in a lot of the big teams that I want. Realistically, the last ones that I need to add as an addition would be selling Erling Haaland for Ivan Toney. And then I need to ask myself, who is the final player that I would like in this team? Whether that be Adebayo of Luton or maybe investing in a midfielder from Aston Villa. And I think Aston Villa probably is the route that I would consider. So selling got plenty of money in the bank, Garnacho for a Bailey. And in terms of a combined points hits, just to remind ourselves, the summary here, I would do Hee-Chan to Son in game week 27. I would take a -4 in game week 28 and do Ake and Foden to Doughty and Bowen. Game week 29, I would take another -4, do Haaland to Toney, Garnacho to Bailey. One would argue maybe I could do Garnacho to Richarlison and go for the double up on Spurs, kind of regardless. But then suddenly you look at this team and think, yes, it has only 9 players, but it has the majority of the big players that you want in game week 29. The only downside is that you are then tying yourself down basically to a wildcard in game week 30 because you're selling off a lot of premium assets like Haaland, all those players like a Phil Foden. And I think wildcarding in game week 30 makes a lot of sense for you to prepare your team for the longer term. So that is a way of navigating the game weeks, and looking at it like that, that looks a bit more interesting, not free hitting. And the more I'm talking, the more I'm thinking to myself, maybe holding the free hit for later on in the season would make a lot of sense. So again, plenty to talk about. I am going to be dropping a bit more of a detailed video tomorrow, going through my transfer plans and of course the best chip strategy. So again, if you are not already, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I want to go through a few more questions before we do wrap this up, guys. So hopefully this has provided a little bit of value. Okay, wildcard. I'm going to be dropping a wildcard video tomorrow, detailed. However, if you are planning on wildcarding this week, you are probably then tying yourself down to a free hit in game week 29. Let me explain. If we reset this team here and we bring up the fixtures. So realistically, if we're going to wildcard this game week, looking at those games, first and foremost, Arsenal away against Sheffield United, there is no world that you don't have at least double Arsenal. But by doing so, you are then obviously committing to having 2 players that don't play in game week 29. So not an ideal start. When we look at the other fixtures that you want to own in a wildcard in game week 30, Liverpool away against Nottingham Forest, maybe those want to go for a bit of a differential in that midfield. I think that's a potential. Also, Man City at home against Man United. Do you not want to go with Erling Haaland in that game? I think you will. And also a Phil Foden feels very, very attractive. But again, that's another 2 players that don't play in game week 29. So all of a sudden, when you build a wildcard team, I think it's going to be very difficult for you not to commit to a free hit in game week 29. So right now, I'm not going to build a wildcard team because I'm going to drop that tomorrow. Because off the top of my head, I think I'll be building a very rushed wildcard team that doesn't actually provide much value to you guys. But if you do want to stick around for the wildcard team, make sure you do check out the video tomorrow. Brian saying free hit 29, dead end to 34, wildcard 35, bench boost 37. Yeah, Brian, I think that's a really viable strategy as well that you could do. I do think that does add a lot of value. And for those that are just coming into the chat, just a quick reminder on the teams that guaranteed to play in game week 29. This is your confirmed game week 29 fixtures, which of course is a blank game week based on those FA Cup results. Isaac saying, yeah, I think because Wolves beat Brighton, it means Wolves versus Bournemouth won't be playing in game week 29. I might be wrong, but I think that's right. Isaac, that is correct on that one. Dylan says, so at present, I'm going to not free hit in 29, so I'll take a -4 this week. Yeah, end of the day, guys, like I said, if you can field 9 players in game week 29 and you have the core players, 2 Spurs, Tony, Watkins, a West Ham midfielder like Jarrod Bowen, then I think maybe just not using your free hit in game week 29 does make a lot of sense. Because if you do rewind this video, if you haven't seen it already, I built a quick free hit team and it doesn't look the most exciting, it has to be said. Yeah, that free hit team gets 25 points exactly. I do feel like it is a team that doesn't have a huge upside. And I do feel like the real players that are going to do well are ones that people will already own in the game. And that's the big issue right now. Hatch saying, any news on Darwin? No, I haven't seen any news on Darwin Núñez right now. My recommendation is probably waiting until those Friday press conferences, and then we will get a bit more of an idea. Adebayo, I haven't seen anything on him, mate. I will keep tabs on that one. Should I buy Son now to avoid the price red? Lalex, I think we would probably need to be dependent on your team. If you're in a situation where you know you want Son regardless, then yes, making the move probably does make sense. If you're in a situation like myself, where you own a He-Chan, then maybe waiting for a bit more information on his status is the right move to go for. However, He-Chan to Son does make a lot of sense this game week, and I feel like a lot of people are going to make that move this game week. When we look at those fixtures for Spurs, it's just really good, and it feels like games where Son is going to do really well. Any Bournemouth assets worth buying apart from Solanke? Gaspar, I think Senesi at the back is a really good investment. Semenyo also has been ticking over nicely for them. Outside of that, not too heavily invested. I think Neto in goal, it also ticks a lot of boxes. What I like about the goalkeeper investment is that you could buy them for 28. You could then just bench them for game week 29 if you have a goalkeeper that plays for example, Areola, and then you can wheel him back out in game week 30 and beyond. So Neto isn't ruled out as a goalkeeper for me in a team and could be a fantastic wildcard goalkeeper as well. Dermot saying, can't afford Son, Maddison an option? Yes, I do think Maddison is an option. I just think Son has the higher ceiling. And while Richarlison's playing as a number 9, I think it's very difficult to justify Maddison as the pick. Solanke flagged, yes, we think he has a knee injury, but also we don't know the full extent of it right now. So hopefully we will get some updates in the Friday press conferences. Ollie is firing off, wildcard or nah. Ollie is going to completely depend on your team. If you're looking for a bit of advice on a wildcard team, I'm dropping that video tomorrow around 2 p.m. where I'm going to give you the best wildcard team. But because the results only come in over the last hour, very difficult for me to come up with the best wildcard team. But if I was building one, I do think that going for somebody like a double Arsenal makes a lot of sense. Neto in goal, going for Tony to cover yourself over that period is a really solid move. Jonathan saying, just joined, are you planning a free hit in game week 29? Jonathan, I'm not sure exactly what route I'm going for, but with my team right now, looking like this, if your team looks anything like mine, I just want to tell you that with a -8, you can basically own most of the players that you want to own for game week 29. It would tie you down for a wild card in game week 30, but looking at what a free hit team in 29 looks like, it doesn't really excite me right now because the upsets didn't happen. So for that very reason, as we speak, I am looking to maybe do some points hits to get my team out for game week 29 with an early wild card not long afterwards. KDB I would keep. I know it is a bit of a risk with the week, but I personally think that I am going for a keep on KDB. Alan, do you think wildcard could be held till game week 31 instead of 30? City versus Arsenal, a big game that week. Yeah, Alan, it's going to be really interesting because game week 30, as you mentioned, if we bring it up here, so huge game for Man City there against Arsenal. If you sold, for example, an Erling Haaland, maybe just waiting one more game week does make a lot of sense. And if you did have Arsenal assets, I think selling Arsenal assets in game week 29 also makes a lot of sense. If you were doing that for a Spurs player or somebody, then when we look at game week 30, let's say you've gone triple Spurs, where they're at home against Luton, that's a really good investment. Let's say, for example, you brought in an Ivan Toney. Don't think that's a bad game with Man United at home. Villa at home against Wolves, good fixture. Just looking at the teams that you probably invested in. Liverpool, you probably won't have any investment in. So yes, I do think game week 31 could be a good time to wildcard and come back into it. Stupid and keep or sell. Zubin, I think if you're in a position where you're looking to not free hit in game week 29, I would look to sell and bring in players that have guaranteed games. Palmer to Son now. Don't love it, Marcus, but Son is a much better option over the next 3 than Palmer. So for that reason, yes, if it benefits your team. And Lelix is saying best goalkeeper for game week 29. Well, as you can see with the fixtures here, I don't actually expect many clean sheets. I think Burnley and Brentford probably both concede. I think Luton and Forest probably both concede as well. Fulham Spurs probably both concede. And West Ham Villa, I think, both concede. So I would be astonished if there are any major clean sheets over game week 29. So for that very reason, I'd be looking at it and thinking to myself, who is the best goalkeeper to own? And I think the answer is Kaminsky. Luton double in game week 28. And I think having a home game, accumulating save points, Kaminsky ticks a lot of boxes over that period. Hold Pedro Porro, yes. If you own him, I think you should keep him. Game week 27, obviously, if he plays, absolute bonus. But if he doesn't, he'll be there for game week 28. And if he's not for game week 28, game week 29, he offers a lot of value as well. So, yes, I do think Pedro Porro is a good long-term hold. Right. I think we are going to wrap it up there, guys. As I mentioned, the plan was to do a nice, short, congested, quick reaction to this game week 29 confirmation. Just to remind you guys, the fixtures that you can see on your screen right now, are the ones that we have for game week 29. And those are, and this is absolutely confirmed, Burnley at home against Brentford, Luton at home against Forest, Fulham at home against Spurs, and West Ham at home against Aston Villa. If you're looking to not free hit in game week 29, the first team that I think you need to start investing in is going to be Spurs. I think the midfield is the place to go. With the injury status of Hee-Chan going off with a hamstring injury, if that is confirmed, Hee-Chan to Son is a very, very good transfer for your teams over the long term. In terms of if you're looking to free hit in game week 29, I still think Spurs are a brilliant investment for your teams. If there's any other questions you have, please do let me know in the comments section of this video once it is ended, and I'll be sure to answer any questions remaining. As I said, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have 2 videos dropping tomorrow, my transfer plans, followed by the best wildcard team, and then on Friday we have my team selection alongside my chip strategy for the rest of the season. So if you're looking forward to any of that, make sure you do smash that subscribe button. It'd be awesome to have you on board this year. That just leaves me to say, have a great evening wherever you are in the world. We're going to wrap this up here. I'll see you early tomorrow morning for the video. Take care, guys.